Welcome to another Railroads online video. Today I want to talk about the recent dev update about the whole thing leaving early access sooner than later. I'm not gonna go through everything here. This is mostly my response to the entire situation and my opinion on the matter because I think the game is far from ready for this step. It's really pushing it, and I even compiled a full list of things that I think the game should be having before leaving early access. I'll be going through that list a bit later down the line, but I made sure to also post it on the Railroads online subreddit, and it was met with absolute support over there. Nobody that I saw posting in that thread talked about it being the right spot for everything and it just being a demanding list of nitpicks or something. A lot of people actually added more points to the list, so it's gonna be quite a long one in the end. But yeah, anyways, the devs mentioned that they want to go through with it. It was clear that it was going to happen sooner or later this year. I always expected it would be later, but with a recent dev post, it sounds like they're just polishing things up and putting on the final touches. And while there isn't any concrete date with how much is left of the year and the current state of the game, it doesn't really matter much. But my money would be on the 1st of October for the release date. After all, that's the anniversary date, and that would just line up perfectly in a sense. But yeah, the game being far from ready and all of that, it just doesn't feel right. Another point is that they also announced a DLC, so that seems to be the direction of the game post-launch. And I mean, I know that even if they just go for the full release now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to stop developing the game. But for the full release, you are going to get people who expect a fully fleshed out game that is feature complete, that it's working well, and all of that. Maybe still needing a bit more content and all of that kind of thing. But the foundation, the core of the game should be fully figured out. And the game is just not there yet. So to quickly go through the DLC, I'm gonna have to switch the tabs real quick. And this is it, Pioneer DLC. Any early access supporters, so people who bought the game already, will have this DLC for free. And it's 3 little items here. First up, a new engine, 060. Sure. I don't think we should be getting those as DLC. Would still be nice to get a few more in the base game. But I guess this is the direction now. The unique Red Mountain Depot building, basically a larger version of the thing that I'm standing next that looks like an outhouse with a platform. And a new skin for the Montezuma. That's all. There's no price point given yet, and I'm not looking forward to knowing what this is going to be. I think $2 would be fair, but then there's also always the question of how are you going to deal with a player base that you just fragmented. Let's say the host doesn't have a DLC, and when I come in, I have a DLC by default because it will be given to me. What if I just start buying myself a new engine or the Montezuma with a new skin, or put down one of the new depots? I mean, that new depot, there's only gonna be one. How is the game gonna deal with that for the host? How is that going to work out? And also vice versa, if I start a session, I have all those things, and people join who don't have a DLC, how is the game going to handle that? I don't want to think of that can of worms any further, but one other point, why a skin for the Montezuma? It's a very good starter engine, don't get me wrong. I prefer it over the other two for starters. The other two are better for yard work, depending on what exactly you need. But the Montezuma is something that I would definitely not buy any more of once I get started. It's really once you get a bit of money, once you get the levels to unlock the other stuff, this is an engine that you only need one of. You cannot customize the starter engine, so when are you ever going to use that skin? Seems like a bit of an oversight, and at that point I would also like to say there are potentially other engines, not looking at anything here, that could maybe use a few more skins. I don't know. Might be the case. Might be some other engines as well. I don't know. There's so many in this game. But yeah, anyways, it being a DLC is already its own can of worms. It's just yeah, at the current state of things, we should be getting that as additions for the base game. But really, what the game needs is a whole other thing, and that's gonna be the majority part of this video. And to be clear, I'm talking about things that I see as pretty much essentials. Nothing that would be just a nice to have future thing. These should be things the game should be shipping with in order to be called a fully done product. And yeah, I don't expect any of those to be added. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were just be taken care of just by happenstance. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we get another 1 or 2 updates before the final release version and stuff breaks and the list becomes even longer from all of that. Maybe we get like 2 items taken care of and another 3 or 4 added. I think that's not too unrealistic look in the future here. But yeah, let's talk about it, and in no real order. It's just in the order I came up with the list. And starting out with passenger transport. The story here is that this coach has been added with the last anniversary update, 1st of October last year. And what can we use it for? Nothing. Still nothing after all this time. I knew it would take some time before we got the actual transporter, the passenger transport functionality, since they made such a big deal about just adding this beforehand. They wouldn't do it if that update came out another week after this was added. But it's still not being in the game. At least it should be usable for 1.0. Otherwise, yeah, if you start out with the game, put a bit of money aside in order to get into passenger transport, tough luck, you just wasted a lot of money on something that's essentially a rolling prop at that point. Next one, and this is one of those big ticket features that should definitely be taken care of, but I'm not too optimistic about it. Being able to change things about your cars and engine after buying them. So right now, if we go to the purchase menu, we can change the paint, we can change the name, we can change the numbers, whatever. And for the engines, we can also get a few more other customization like smokestack and headlight and fully fleshed out paint options here that are not just the base color. But once we buy them and we notice that maybe we did something wrong, we gave it the wrong number or whatever, it's done. You can sell it again, buy it once more if you want to. But the only real way to change it after purchase is to save and edit the save file in Railroad Studio. Not amazing. Not amazing. So yeah, that should likely be added maybe to the roundhouse, but especially for changing stuff about the cars, there should be a drive-through facility. So if you have a longer train, maybe you want to change the color of all of your boxcars or something, you should be able to slowly drive through, maybe stop a few times and do it without having to go in and out, just back and forth all the time. But yeah, that's not in the game right now. One thing that is in the game but should be taken care of is completely misscaled buildings. The most egregious example is likely this building at the cattle farm. I mean, just walking up here. It looks pretty nice from a distance, but the closer you get, the more you notice something being wrong. And I'm glad that nobody can open the door here, because I would be hit in the chin with the doorknob. I mean, look at it. How old is Mr. Railroadsen? Could like 8-year-olds already grow a beard back then and turn fully gray? Was it this stressful growing up in those times? I wouldn't deny it, but yeah, there might just be something wrong with the building scale. And to be clear, it's not one building. It's everything that would need to be checked. The majority of these buildings need a rescaling, some of them, and that's really the minority, like the Undertaker building, I think. No, that's not on scale either. I think some of them were on scale, but a lot of these are off, and even the same is true for the roundhouse. Just looking at the side entrance, if I ever can make my way fully around here. Does this thing just keep going? No. This is the door, and this also seems like it was made for somebody 3 meters tall, or 290 to 80, or like 7 foot or something. More like 8. Who knows? Definitely way taller than reasonable, and I don't think the people back then would have taken care of making the thing larger than necessary. But yeah, those are some of the more egregious examples of misscaling that should all be addressed for 1.0, because right now it's just a bunch of props that don't fit together. Next one, fix random derailing over switches, truss bridges and crossings. Basically everything in the track menu that is not spline, like the stuff on top and the bridges over here, apart from the truss bridge. This is all kinda prone to derailment if you just drive over it normally. At around 20 miles, not real high speed or anything. It's just gonna throw you off randomly every now and again. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not. Sometimes half the train goes through and then the switch just randomly flips and derails everything that comes afterwards. Shouldn't be in the game at the 1.0 version. Just highly irritating, highly frustrating, and not a lot of fun to deal with. The next point, one of my... And people who watch me likely already know what's coming at this point. Yes, of course, the industry output bug. They try to fix it. I won't get into everything here, just what it should be to keep it brief. If we have an industry with multiple different outputs, like the sawmill over here, it used to be the case that if one side fills up, maybe because you got a lot of product out of the other side, if this side fills up, the output ratio of the other side is going to be doubled. So you're still gonna get the same overall amount of product out of your supply resources. Right now that doesn't happen, you just get the output at the same steady rate. So you are missing out on half the potential stuff that you should be getting. And it's even worse at the mines, especially the iron ore mine right here. Usually for any amount of input you get on regular industry difficulty 5 items as output. And the problem right now is that while it would be producing 5 items, or 5 iron ore in this case, if I start loading while there's still input, it's gonna fill up again despite there only being space for 1 item. It doesn't wait for the capacity to put in everything. If I go a bit quicker here, or at least I try to go a bit quicker, we get a bit more out of it. Now it would be 4, but again one item would be wasted, and it should really be waiting until it has enough capacity to get everything that it would be producing in one go. But right now that's not the case, and it's just very wasteful. Basically forcing you to never fill up the output and the input at the same time. You would need to stop providing supplies before this one gets full, because otherwise you are going to waste some supplies that they should just be waiting on to use until they have the space for their product that they are making. And yeah, the next point, balance the fuel economy. both for consumption rates as well as making sure the facilities make sense. Could also potentially add a few more facilities, but this is really the main part, that consumption of wood, coal and water needs to be balanced. Coal for the longest time was going down way too slowly, but at this point they made one official update where they did something that didn't do a whole lot. But then afterwards they made an update that they didn't announce, didn't go into, and now the consumption rates for coal are okay for the bigger engines, but the smaller ones like the Ruby Basin and Ferris and Cliff House, which only have 1,000 units each, they are way too high. On high fuel consumption rate, you get, I think, 16 or 17 shovels out of each of those before they are completely empty. You need 3 or 4 shovels in order to even start the engine up. So the first time you want to fill up the firebox again, you need a few shovels, and yeah, you do that a few times, you do a few refuelings. Once you are going, it's just gonna run out of coal so quickly that these engines are basically useless. And it should be balanced in a way that while these ones should have far less range with how much fuel they have than the bigger ones, it shouldn't be quite the difference as it is right now. Because right now, with the bigger ones having about 6 times the capacity as the smaller ones, they can go 6 times further, and that means that with a factor of 6 between them, it's never going to be balanced well for both of these. These ones, since they are bigger engines to begin with, they need a higher fuel consumption rate, so you would need to shovel a lot more coal into the firebox in order to keep it running, and that should be how you balance it. And while the range of the larger engines should still be longer, it shouldn't be that drastic, maybe twice as far or something like that. I made a balancing attempt on paper a while ago, and while there likely would still be a lot of things to be desired, I felt that my solution was a bit closer to what it should be than what we have right now. And I mean, it was quite a bit closer. Firewood consumption is also very low. Some of these engines shouldn't even be running on firewood to begin with. They would be coal burners in real life, but converting everything over to coal that should be running on coal would leave very few firewood engines, and with how late in the game the coal mine is, that wouldn't be a good idea either. So the least they should be doing is increase the firewood intake of fireboxes and just require to refire that a lot more often and just refuel it, I mean. And besides that, there's the overarching problem of the firewood supply to begin with. So first up, we need stuff from the from the logging camp or the sawmill really, and we put that into the firewood facility in order to get firewood on this side. And this is a decently large facility that has both an input side over here and an output side on the other end. And you need to absolutely always keep it stocked in order to get stuff out of here. So that's a bit, it's a bit demanding, but it's kind of in a good way. Having an active fuel economy that you need to take care of is adding another layer to the gameplay. The problem here is that it's completely undermined by the wood rig. While it does spawn empty, it generates stuff automatically. I just put the rig here and it's just gonna start with 10 wood, but over time it's gonna fill up on its own. It's a much smaller facility than this one, so it's gonna be easier to place down. And if you're not needing to do anything in order to keep it running, just wait a while. You just put a few down and you always can have enough firewood, making this entire thing completely obsolete. I go out of my way to not use the wood rig at any point, otherwise I wouldn't be dealing with firewood depots at all. The way it should be working, in my opinion, is that wood rigs should not be generating firewood. Maybe you can buy it and then it would get a lot of wood automatically. But the way you should be using it primarily is you place on the firewood depot or facility right here, and then bring over the stuff that it needs in order to put out some firewood on this side, and you come along with one of your cars that should be able to carry firewood, and then you deliver it to some of the wood rigs around the map. So this would be for your main yard over here, and the wood rigs would be for secondary locations, yards where you don't have that much space but also need firewood, and that would be a good way to balance it and suddenly have a whole different system of supply that you need to take care of in order to keep your operations running in the long run. But right now, you really only need the firewood rig, and this thing can be completely ignored. And that just really kinda sucks. Another thing is change the gameplay menu so that we can combine custom day-night length with dynamic weather again. Used to be the case on the initial version when, I don't even know where I'm going to save thing there. When we got the menu here, we could combine our custom day-night cycle. I usually, if I'm not in my testing world, I like to go with 60 minutes daytime and somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes night, because it gets really dark then and prohibits me from doing a lot of stuff on working with my text and everything. So I like to keep the night length somewhat short. Problem is, if I now want to have a certain weather condition, I can go over here, I can choose which one I want, but that's about it. If I want to have dynamic weather, so something that just changes over time, I go to this tab, I activate that, and that's working now. But it also means that I can only have day length given from these options here. If I now go back to custom weather, I'm stuck with clear skies again, and my day-night length just got adjusted to the setting over here, because apparently it's just gonna pick 15 minutes day length if I go here and just gonna keep it automatically. Now it's 30-30, but yeah, since I'm in creative here, I might as well add just a large number. We can even just put down INF for infinite, and this should keep it at the same time now automatically. But yeah, this should be combined into one, being able to get dynamic weather events while having your own custom day-night cycle. That's gonna be the best solution. It was the case before, but right now it's just not available anymore. So that kinda sucks. And yeah, the next one would be, and that's just another presentation thing, but I think it's also pretty telling of how well the game has been put together. Proper unloading animations. Right now, for any good, even the cows, you kind of just go to the car, get the arrow, press the button, stuff spawns here out of nowhere, gets reduced from or deducted from the car. And that's everything that's happening here. I don't expect like full detail stuff, but this is garbage. This is okay for early access when you just implement a feature, but going into the full release, I would expect somewhat more competent unloading animations. Like maybe if you have a boxcar like this and you would be unloading the pallets, you would get like a board or something and then have them pushed along. I don't expect to have like workers come out of the building and deal with all of that, but it shouldn't be just stuff teleporting next to the car and then falling down. The cows and I think the cattle car here it's empty, so I cannot show you guys. But the cows do the same, and they should have an unloading animation where they just walk out of the car. Next one, replace the floating glowing text at industries and facilities with something more fitting, like signs. I'm of course talking about stuff like this over here, seed pellets, one out of God knows how many. The water being just floating above the well. Also for the water towers over here. I don't know why that's called a water well. That's a bit weird. Oh no, wait. That's actually that's the industry, not the facility. Also, a lot of the facilities have the same thing going on, and it gets really abysmal at night. Especially if it's not clear skies, but let's go with something like rain. Get to about midnight, and all you're gonna see is some outline of the buildings, but mainly the flickering text and everything. It's just so destructive to the immersion. Could be a really nice scenery now, really immersive, especially with the lights going on in the passenger car and all of that. But just having all the text, it looks like garbage. Put this onto signs, attach them to the platform, maybe have a chalkboard for the stuff that can change. So just writing 100/100 and then just having it adjust automatically. Or even do something different like, you know, these for some of the calendars have that kind of stuff where you have like a rod going horizontally and all the different dates are just little signs that come off it and you flip that over to the back. Or for combination logs where you have this wheel with all of the numbers on, could have a bigger version of that as part of the sign. So that it would just rotate to show you the next number and that kind of stuff. That would be a way more immersive way of handling it. And as it is right now, it's just, again, fine for early access. For a final product that wants to just properly present itself, really not that much. And yeah, the next one would be replace the low resolution textures. And that's something that really everything needs to be taken a closer look at. Just look at the sawmill. Does this look like a proper 2024 texture quality to you, especially the beams in between? I mean, everything kind of looks like hot garbage here. Another contributing factor to everything looking like it's halfway done. I know it's not a texture thing, but just the thing up here, the little balcony consisting of two platforms that have been just bolted together in this way. Also hilariously weird. But yeah, the textures could be a bit more unison in terms of quality and also just getting rid of some of the redundant ones. Another huge thing that's a turn off here is just the roundhouse track textures. I don't even want to look at it, but how can you not? Also, some of the stuff way more high resolution than others. Like this one looks pretty brilliant. It's part of the foundation of the tower over here. But the other ones look a bit more washed out, a bit more like less detailed. This one really doing something. The other ones not quite as much. And yeah, it should just be all more coherent. And even just the model for the rails. This is a very different rail type than both the turntable have and also the roundhouse over here. And that just needs to be taken care of. Where are we? Let's see. Oh yeah, another thing, and this is more for gameplay. Fix the bloody brakes. While they have been made a bit better now, they are still very much too strong. I think the last 15% or so, from 85% to 100, they start gripping in a way that's just no good. I can likely just show you guys with the climax here real quick. So let's enter the vehicle. I know it's cold, but there should be enough pressure in here to begin with. If I set the brake to, let's go 80%, go with the regulator, we easily go through the brakes. And even now we are rolling quite a lot. Do we even have, we might not have any brake pressure, so that's on me. Okay, can't really show you. But that's something that you see pretty much if you probably set up your engine to begin with. Even with full brake pressure, it's gonna push through it. And even if you let go of a regulator, if you pull that all the way back down to zero, it will keep rolling for a bit. If you go higher than that, immediately fully pulling the brakes and nothing happens anymore. I mean, I might as well try. I don't have any brake pressure, but okay. It's not that bad. But yeah, there are definitely a few things weird with all of that. And especially if you pull the brake a bit too harshly, you're now gonna have all your cars derail behind you. Just proper pile up and all of that. It's annoying. It's usually a good point for me to end the session and not come back for a few days if I run into that problem too often. So that should definitely be taken care of. Next one, put wheel slip back into the game. It's been here 1.5 years ago or something, and then it got removed for some reason. And wheel slip means that if you pull a heavy train up a grade, your engine might not have enough traction, it might start slipping, you may actually need to open the sender, which every single engine has. They have senders to help with traction, and they have been a non-factor for God knows how long. So every single engine has at least one send dome somewhere, and you can, I don't know how to close that bloody thing. The controls here are a whole nother bag of worms that I should also probably put on the list. But yeah, you can open this, the sand will be delivered to the powered wheels. Maybe not on the back here. But this should help traction, and it's not been a problem, or it's basically not been a factor for 1.5 years now. Just about that. And yeah, that also means that the sand house, which is the thumbnail for all the facilities right here, completely useless. Even if I run out of sand, why would I ever refill it? I don't need it. So yeah, wheel slip should definitely make a return. And I would expect a lot of issues from that, so that would be something that takes a long time to properly implement. The next thing is, and I think we are right now so staffed on options that this is actually an essential item. More switches. First up, for stuff like double tracking, I would like to have more switches that allow me to not only, and also crossovers. There should be crossovers that correspond with the angles the track here forks off the main part of the switch. So we need one that works well with an angle like this, where two splitting parts come and cross over. Also another switch where just one of them is in parallel and just crossing over the other side. Just in case you want to do something with double tracking. Because right now that's just a whole pain to deal with. And it should be way better and easier. Also other different types of switches, like this one here. This was really a quick and dirty thing that I put down just to try it out. But what I would really like to, and I'm gonna see if I can quickly make this happen here. No, I think I need one right here. And then maybe another switch like this. And this should now give me something that looks like the thing I want. At least for the most part, with a rather quick setup over here. Okay, it's not perfect, but something like this. Crossover switch where you can either go straight on both tracks or switch over so you can then just turn the left here. So that kind of thing, just to get a few more options in the game. Because right now with the few that we have, it's just been really abysmal for quite a while. Especially if you want to do double tracking. But also for a lot of other things. Next one would be better menus. Especially drop-down. The drop-down menus, they should really be their own menu points here, so more sub-menus and that kind of thing. Because going through all of this, especially when you want to place down multiple things and maybe in different colors. It's annoying. Also, you need to get in here to begin with in order to get the item. There is no item preview, and that makes everything even more annoying than it needs to be. I mean, how am I even supposed to know which color the different banks are? There are at least 2 color options for each of the buildings here, and you basically have to remember every single one of them if you want to make the informed choice which ones to pick. It's not like every single building has like a red version 1 and a blue version 2. No, some of them are red, some of them are yellow, some of them are blue, and which one is which is always gonna be different depending on the building. And yeah, besides that, for better menus, there should also be a change to the locomotive purchase option. First up, separating cars from locomotives, but also if you come in here and you want to buy multiple of the same, the least they could do is that if you choose the one you want, you add the paint option that you want, maybe you want to go with light blue here, add the number, add the name, you buy it, you go back in here for the second one. It still should be the exact same as what you put in here. So whatever you put in here, it's gonna keep that, and if you want to maybe switch up the number or whatever, then you can just do this. But if you want to just buy the same ones over and over, you just come in here and do so. No need to reselect the same thing over and over, and honestly, just because of that entire process, I've usually been going with the default colors because I cannot be asked to skip through 20 different cars to get to the one I want to, and then also select the color for all of them. It's just not happening. So yeah, that's the basic minimum as far as the menus are concerned. And now I need to scroll down a little because the list is going on, but my screen isn't. And we are getting to the last few, don't worry, it's not gonna go on for too much longer. Track laying quality of life, buttons to invert the radius or turn it straight in circle mode. Also, it should remember the grade again, because when building a grade and selecting different options like different bridges, different fill types, it's annoying having to remember the grade all the time and putting it back in. Easy to make a mistake, and it should just keep the grade in the menu here. And the other part I meant is, it's a quality of life menu that could theoretically still wait, but we've been waiting for this so long that it should be finally added. We have a go straight button for the free mode right here, but circle mode could use the same. And it could also use another button where we can just go from, in this case, minus 60 meters, so 60 meter radius to the left. Press the button, get 60 meter radius going to the right. And maybe it should just keep the 60 meter radius saved up, and if you press another button, you go between the radius you've chosen before and just go to straight instead. Just a few quality of life things which should be a minor feature to implement, but a huge thing that we would then profit from by making everything a lot more convenient. So some of it is not necessarily essential for version 1.0, but it would definitely show great quality additions, and at least I think the whole thing about remembering the grade, that should be mandatory. Okay, next one is the option to sell, and I really mean sell, engines and rolling stock. Right now, if we don't like something, we can go over here to the demolish tool and go to locomotives or go to all and get rid of it. Not gonna do that to poor Shay over there, it did nothing wrong apart from being slow. But yeah, ultimately there should be a way to get a bit of money for that. Maybe deliver it to a certain place, maybe being able to sell it at a roundhouse or something, or back to the starting track. And yeah, that would be way better than just deleting it for nothing. And I think there should also be a grace period where you get at least 90%, if not the full price, back for your engine or whatever you sell. Maybe selling it in the first half hour gives you back the full price in case you figured out that whatever you bought wasn't really what you needed, and yeah, just being able to return it. The next point has to do with the starting track. It's been used as for quite a while since we cannot or we don't get anything placed on here when we buy it anymore. It just spawns on a random track close to us, and that's an annoying feature. It doesn't fully work, and really what should be happening, my ideal version of this would be that we get another placeable facility where we get it only once. And it would be looking a bit like this, just a few platforms, some of them with stairs and all of that, but it would just be a very basic thing. So one line of platforms right here, and another in parallel a few meters further down the line. I'm just gonna make it real quick here just to show you what I mean, but you get the idea. And this would be the entire facility, maybe a tiny building at the end of this, I don't know, I don't care. But the important thing is that every track that you build in between here will be eligible to have new stock spawn on them. And that's the only one. It will not spawn everywhere, but only between these two platforms, which you will then move around if you want to, and that would be it. It would be just the basic starting track, but a version that you can place wherever you want, making it a bit more flexible, but not just being this crazy, stupid spawn wherever and usually even spawn multiple ones in the same location and stacking them up in a weird way kind of deal. This would be a much needed improvement on that, to give the entire thing a bit more consistency once again. Okay, next up, reworking local collisions for player, step ladders, maybe close gaps between cars. I don't want to make everything impassable here so that we cannot enter the cars from the back anymore or so, but it's really inconsistent with how it works, and right now it's just it will always feel a bit cheap just passing through the stuff like Homer Simpson through a hedge or something. In the end, I think this is necessary for the gameplay in order to work out, but with some of the tenders and all of that, especially with the class 125 here, you just get stuck in here. I'm just jumping now and I cannot even get out of this like that. And there should be some more consistency, some more thought put into this to make the right parts impassable. And yeah, they should really take care of that. Especially when it comes to some of these little step ladders to the side of the engines. With some of them it works pretty well, with some of the others like the 260, really hard to get into. And especially when the engine is running away from you and you try to get back on and hit the brakes. This kind of stuff is highly frustrating. And not being able to get into some of those engines at all, it's annoying, and it should be made more consistent that it works out well. And yeah, my suggestion here is that the step ladders should just be working as ladders on all of the engines. Besides that, if you put a train together with multiple cars, you usually also end up with a lot of gaps between them, just at the couplers and all of that. And I think it would be a good idea to just cover over that little gap with hitboxes that the player can walk on, so that there's no risk dropping in between the cars, getting run over by them and getting stuck below them, which also very often happens in that situation. Just being able to counteract this a little bit. And yeah, I think we would make the player experience quite a bit better in that regard already. You can't fully get rid of some of the stuff with how brakes work and everything. you kind of need to be able to get out of your engine, run across the back of the train, going to a few cars and doing stuff there. It's just how it needs to work out. Okay, next up, and this is where we get into some of the more contentious items. The game really should have an in-depth economy. What I mean by that is that the track should be requiring putting in some money, or maybe delivering the resources to make it a bit cheaper once you got to the industries. Maybe even being able to buy the industries and doing a lot of stuff with that. Potentially, maybe you should even pay money if you grab items from the industry, and then get paid for the delivery and that item once you deliver it to the next one. Or if you don't purchase the items at the industry to deliver to the next one, maybe if you derail and lose the item, then you would be deducted some money. There are a lot of things that could be done here, and I think a lot of it should be done. How and what exactly would be a topic for a completely different video. But yeah, the game should have a proper economy that goes beyond getting paid for your deliveries and only needing to pay for new cars and engines. Potentially this would be implemented as a second mode so that people can still use the more creative-esque version of the game as we have it right now. But there should be more depth to the mechanics here, and stuff should be added. For example, also adding loans. But anyways, I don't want to go any further in this because once again I can likely talk for an hour about it. So the next thing here is lamp props to light up the yards. I've already shown you guys how it looks at night, and yeah, I don't think it's necessarily mandatory, but with how dark the game can get, it's a feature that has been highly requested and has been confirmed to come at some point, and they should get it done before version 1.0. Just adding a few lampposts, a few lanterns that you can place down, stuff that just turns on at night to light up your yard in order to allow you to keep working on stuff and not having to take a break because you can't just see anything. And also, and I think that's going to be the last one, I still had another one on my mind that I forgot to write down, but the last one really here, proper steam cutoff sim. The current one, both really unrealistic and also kind of annoying because it just cuts down on the top speed of engines. And proper cutoff would be working very differently, and for I don't want to see a realistic focus game because at this point it's definitely moved away from that, but to some degree it still is, and it should be doing that kind of stuff as well. So some proper steam simulation where there's actually capacity for the steam, and the more you accelerate, the faster you go. You exhaust that capacity, at which point the pressure goes down if you cannot keep up steam production in the firebox, and that's why the cutoff sim would be useful, because that would allow you to use less steam per rotation. The one right now is just arse backwards and kind of annoying to deal with. I mean, you don't even need to deal with it, you're just gonna accept the top speed decrease and get on with your journey, I guess. But it's really not amazing. Something should be done about it. And yeah, there should definitely be a better system here. I also don't remember if I mentioned the LOD, the lot situation. If you look at the track over there, if I go closer, we suddenly see the deck appearing, and these lots should be made a bit more consistent so that they don't just have this annoying pop-in. They need to be in the game in order to help performance, but the difference between, or the visual difference between the low-level LOD and the high-level should be much less, and it shouldn't be that recognizable once the texture changes, because the entire thing just turns transparent for some reason. I think that's gonna be all from me for this one. Again, I had like one point that I just came up with, but who cares at this point? It's been a long list of things. And once again, I don't expect everything or even anything in particular to be added to the game. I would like to see at least a few things come true, but in the end, if a majority of stuff is not on the list, I'm gonna be having a hard time accepting this as a fully fleshed out product, because I think the points that I made here are reasonable for a finished version of this game, and what we got here right now is very far away from that. So all of that being said, let me know your guys' opinion on the matter. And as always, thanks for watching, have a good day, and see you next time. Bye bye.